After David and Cole's quick stop at the supply office, they both parted ways. David headed back to the Medi Center to give Angela a communicator, and Cole got everyone else theirs, with David then making his way back to the bridge. As David walked in, the captain was talking to the Clo-Cache security chief. Not wanting to interrupt, David stood a respectable distance. The Clo-Cache, while their towering stature is impressive, it is their proclivity to take to tasks that others would hate that gives them a fantastic attitude toward being guards or security. Standing about 7 feet tall on the low end and 12 on the high, they are giants in the community. Their fur is usually around the length of half a foot, but beneath is a coat of quills that, yes, they can shoot out as a form of attack. Standing in a quadrupedal stance, resting on the knuckles of their hand, they are often compared to apes when running. They can support themselves on their legs alone, but prefer not to. Their faces are like that of a flat-faced bear. However, it does not reach far from their body due to a smaller neck structure. Being herbivores has done no end of confusion to human scientists. When humanity joined the community, however, that didn't make them fantastic friends, even if they have some secrets. From the little he could overhear, the last of the supplies for their extended stay in the unknown regions had been delayed, and the chief wasn't happy, something about his herdmates needing something he didn't know. Their conversation came to an end a minute later, and the chief walked out, seemingly more agitated than normal. The captain looked like he was done for the day, but still turned to David and waved him over. "David, I hear that Alaris has met her match today. Care to tell me how you beat her wit?" the captain said, a bit of a chirp in his voice. "Oh, well, unfortunately, I do not know, Captain," David said, fanning ignorance. "I just used what I knew of her culture and customs." "Oh, you are familiar with Xandraphane culture? Remarkable," the captain said, his voice sounding happier. "Tell me how you are so knowledgeable about her people." "Well, Captain," David said carefully to pick the right words, "when my team and I were being prepared, I studied the cultures and traditions of all the species on board. The Human Republic figured that as the liaison officer that I would have to be the one to—" paused for a second. "Soften the ground, if you will." The captain eyed David for a few seconds before squawking a few times. "I see. A prudent choice on their part. You are certainly an anomaly." The captain gestured to the command chair, and David kept in step. "So, David, it seemed to me you were in the middle of a request when we spoke earlier." "I was," David said as they reached the halfway point on the stairway. "My team, mainly due to the quarantine, need a chance to stretch their legs and relax. Molt their feathers," he added. "Well, I was hoping you would allow us leave for a few hours onto the station." David had a good feeling about the answer, but waited on the captain as he sat in his chair. The old bird let out a whistle. "Yes, I do believe that is all right." The captain looked down for a second or two. "As much as I would like to depart, we are still lacking some vital supplies we need. To be forward, I don't think we will be leaving for at least a week," he said as he shifted in his set, almost like he was nestling in. "Shit, we can't wait that long," David thought as he took in the news. "If it's not above my station, may I ask what these supplies we are missing?" forcing a neutral tone. The captain looked over at David. "Well, the main one that we can't buy here at the station is the Clo-Cache supplement. I believe it's a compound mixed in water. The final product has a compound structure of C2H5OH. The captain said, his voice filling with disappointment. "Sadly, we don't know how they make it or where it comes from." David felt like what he imagined a deer in headlights would feel like. "Did you say C2H5OH? "Yes, but don't worry, it will get here when it gets here. I told the chief to ration what they have left," the captain replied, looking to David at the end and then recoiling in terror. David had realized too late what he had done and quickly covered his mouth. Grinning was a big rule for all humans out in space. "Apologies, Captain," he said while calming down, "but I believe I can help remedy these issues without needing to wait on the supply ship." He had to also be careful on how to produce. "I wouldn't get into the specifics, but I believe I can have the needed compound delivered to your ship in a few hours. However, as per Article 502 to the Galactic Council Law, I can't tell you how, and would require a closed channel to the Earth Diplomatic Services headquarters." The captain regained his composure and stretched the alloy plate on his beak. "Every well," the captain said before standing up and calling out, "Comms, get Officer David a close line to EDS and then clear out all of you." David didn't waste time, choosing to simply jump off the raised platform the command chair was on. He quickly walked over to the comm station as all, but the captain cleared out. "EDS, this is GEV 105, come in." "GEV 105, we read you loud and clear, how can we help?" A thick Germanic voice responded. David leaned in a bit. "This is David Solomon, clearance code G5 PNC1. We need enough beers of the lowest alcohol content for 5 months delivered to this ship as soon as possible." "David, we require a reason for such." "Mission Priority 1, Tabby's Simulate is beer. The supply ship from their home system is a week behind schedule," David replied before the operator could finish. "Understood, good work. The supply ship will be arriving in 5 Earth hours. Please be on standby for retrieval," a deep Britannia voice responded. "EDS out." David stood up straight up and turned to the captain. "Done, sir. I'll have my team help unload the supply in vacuum suits," he said as he started walking. "The supplies should arrive in 6 ship hours, sir." That captain eyed David for a few seconds. "I do know you humans are odd, but the way you acted suggests your people know what this stimulus is." A lightly accusatory tone carried in by the captain. "However, you have given us a chance to depart on time." "Thank you, sir," David responded. "And about the shore leave for me and my team? As soon as you unload the supplies," the captain waved his hand. "You can have 3 ship hours. If you aren't aboard, we will leave you behind." David gave the captain a quick salute before heading to the cabins of the ship to look for his team. "So that's the deal," David said to the team, having gathered them up in one of the common areas that they had kept empty with death stares and loud words in English. It's amazing how fast everyone on this ship runs when Death Worlders speak loud enough in a language they don't know them to know. "The supply ship should be docking in about 3 Earth hours. Then we get our void suits on, we unload, hand off the supplies to the Clocash herd, and then go get drunk on the station." He looked at his team, seeing more than a few overlays, enthusiastic faces. Finally, someone realized that the supplies weren't for them and was stupid enough to ask, "What has been delivered exactly?" Before a sharp and audible smack was heard. "Why in the name of Gaia are you asking? It's classified," the disgruntled voice of Sergeant Hirth carried. Hirth Coldman, one of the few here David would call a friend, started as a grunt in the ranks. When David was given command of their fire team, his frame is bulked from muscle training, but he had most, if not all, of his muscle mass replaced by cybernetics. He did it so he could, quote, "tear him apart when I am out of ammo." His skin is a deep brown from his ancestry from Central Africa, and despite his station and sometime rough demeanor, he is in fact the nicest member on the team. "Yes, it is classified," David confirmed. "And when you unload what you see, you keep to yourselves until the death of this reality," his voice emanating authority. "Now, Break, I do believe the security chief will be arriving soon, and I don't want him to think a fight may break out, so do something other than being here." It took the better part of a minute, during which time David got a drink and sat down to read reports from the team. Just as he was getting to the last drops, the chief and a handful of guards came down the hall. "Liaison Officer Solomon," the chief grumbled as he walked him. "I have received no less than 17 complaints about your herd," shaking his fur to allow for his quills to flex outwards more easily, "and 20 requests for reassignment to different cabin areas. Care to explain?" "Yes, but first, may I ask for you to keep the crew from venturing in while we hash this out?" David said as he slowly disposed of the drink's container, before turning his attention back to the chief. "You will want this to stay between us." The chief eyed David for a few more seconds than David was comfortable, but eventually nodded, and 2 of his escort moved to block the door, and he said, "Gevai, Dark Fog Protocol, code JV05SC1. Code and voice print confirmed, active data scrubbing in effect," the Gavi chipped back. "So, human, do you want to tell me what this is about?" the chief said while walking over to the table David was seated at. "Well, to make it simple, I am doing you a favor, and I want one in return," David said in a careful tone. "EDS is sending a supply ship up to dock with us. On board, there is about 5 months' worth of your stimulants." While resting his elbows on the tabletop, Well, an Earth equivalent. The chief looked at David before the sound of scraping metal sounded from the chief. Clo-cash laughter is horrible to human ears. Good jest! I almost believe you. Oh, I am not joking. Moreover, this isn't an attempt to threaten you. David waved his hand. After all, we make it for fun and have more than enough to share. His voice was cool and collated, despite the danger he had put himself in. And of course, the nature and manufacturing of it will be made a national secret on Earth, too, a gesture of goodwill from humanity to the Clo-cache. David heard the telltale sounds of metal being bent from under the chief, but didn't avert his eyes. Moreover, I have kept the truth of how to make C2H5OH a secret from the captain by activating an old law of the Galactic Council. So humanity has both the means and access to our stimulants. That is unfortunate news, but it could be in worse hands. The chief said as he relaxed a bit. So what do you want in return for this magnanimous gesture? Well, the training you wanted to run with the human contingent? I would like for it to be moved back a day, David said while hiding his wolfish grin. You would supply us for our voyage for just one day? Why? The chief narrowed his eyes. Well, once we are done unloading, we are taking a short shore leave to unwind and relax. David said bluntly, also, as a bit of this leave, more than a few of us will be drinking ethanol products, which will mean that those who are meant to go for the training will be unable to arrive on time, if at all. I have read of your kind's odd obsession for poisoning yourselves and the after effects. The chief seemed to ruminate on the information. Very well, you can tell your herd that the training has moved. Have the stimulants moved to my office. I am glad we could agree. David gave a constrained smile. The supply ship should be here in 3 ship hours and 10 minutes. David got up as he spoke. By the way, next time you have a chance to try the beer Blue Moon, it is my favorite, and walked out to leave the chief. It took the better part of an hour, but eventually, the entirety of the human complement was in the hangar in sealed void suits. David could help but feel a bit nostalgic for the active military members. Their suit had stronger padding and armor plating, along with a cybernetic muscle structure to enhance their strength. While he was stuck with a civilian contractor suit, still the same, but no funny stuff. So, is our suit's comms a closed network? Cole spoke into his helmet, arms waving a bit to get David's attention. Human anomaly, Cole. For safety, the communications are currently open and will be closed when the supply ship finishes docking. Gavi answered. Oh, Cole said. And don't stand close to the ship. I can't fix a crushed skeleton, Angela chimed in. Human anomalies, the supply ship is on final approach. Gavi notified them as the silhouette of the ship came up from below the hangar's open door. The ship was a basic supply type. A forward-facing control station was attached to a long superstructure that pulled back into a corridor about 8 feet wide. Along the sides were cargo pods that could be accessible from the interior of the ship. The bridge was on the lower side of the control center and had a bubble canopy facing downwards. The 3 landing gears lower down and magnetically locked with the floor. David took his chance and signaled the pilots to open the rear ramp. Supply ship docked, disconnecting from the network, Gavi said. Okay, let's get going, Oscar said, starting to move to the rear of the ship. The rest of the team followed him. As David reached the top of the rear ramp, the team was crowded around one of the access ports. A few of them pointed, others staring blankly. It was Hans that turned to David. Why is the ship full of beers? David let his sigh be loud enough to get everyone's attention. The Clo-cache compound that they drink is beer. Very weak beer, but beer, as he walked past them and grabbed a crate. Now come on. The sooner we get this done, the sooner we get to go drink something.